Hi, and welcome to this week's Three Legs, Four Wheels F1 podcast. It's Paul here with
Dan.
Chris and Lee.
news.
Let's do the news first.
More fucking Monday news.
What this is?
Let's do the news quick before more comes.
This is 2 weeks out of 3. Hang on, just in case there's more. Here's where the jump cut goes. Well, that was interesting. But what's happened on Monday?
There has been some news. Thank you to our favourite team.
Considering it was our mate as well, our mate Lando.
Yeah.
He probably said, "We've got to get this out on Monday, lads." And they're like, "No, we do news on Tuesday." So the lads, Monday.
First driver to appear on the show.
Lando Norris.
Yep. And now going into F1.
He's already changed his Twitter profile to say 2019 McLaren F1 driver. And that's an opening door.
And that's a cat invading us. Unfortunately, that means Jensen isn't coming back to McLaren, even though Jensen the cat has just walked into the podding room. It all started this morning with McLaren announcing completely out of the blue that Stoffel Van Dorn will be leaving the team at the end of the season.
Yep.
They had to clarify end of the season because of all the rumours that he wasn't going to make it to Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, and it's quite telling as well that Stoffel Van Dorn's announcement came after McLaren's. It's not like I'm going somewhere else, I'm joining, or I'm going to this series. I don't think he's got anything lined up at the moment, but Stoffel's statement.
Stoffel's awful.
Yeah, Stoffel's statement was a bit downhearted. So I think he's very,
which is understandable.
Yeah. He says that he's not achieved what they hope to achieve in the 2 years in Formula One that he's been there, and he's been part of that difficult McLaren transition from Honda to Renault.
Being good to being crap.
Well, no, they were already shit when he got there. So Stoffel Van Dorn is on his way out of the team, and then about an hour later.
It was an hour at the most. Yeah. Totally unexpected. McLaren just put the news out. Lando Norris to drive for McLaren in 2019, partnering Carlos Sainz.
Yep. So McLaren become the fourth team to complete their driver lineup for 2019. We already know Mercedes, we already know Red Bull, and we already know Renault. It's so McLaren become the fourth team to complete their driver lineup, and of course, as the merry-go-round of drivers will continue as the autumn rolls on into winter, and as winter becomes spring again. Hopefully, we should know by then, because
it would be good to know who's driving for who in 2019 before, say, March 14th, when the first race
provisional
of the season.
so far.
Yeah. Provisional calendar,
Yeah.
but
I haven't put that in the running order because it's provisional.
But let's face it, when they do the provisional calendar, there's usually nothing changes.
Yeah, it involves somebody going bust on a circuit.
Dates don't change, but
circuits
races
can
get
disappear.
dropped.
Yeah,
But I mean, Germany's back next year. They've struck a 1-year deal with Hockenheim, which gives them enough time to organise a longer deal. So it looks like, for the time being, the chances of F1 returning to the Nürburgring are probably less than zero.
2013, I think, was the last time they were at the Nürburgring.
Sounds about right.
The Mercedes-Benz German Grand Prix as well, I think, as well. Isn't
Yes, they will be sponsoring it. I mean, they offered to do that a couple of years ago.
Yeah, when they weren't able to run at Hockenheim.
Yeah, it'll be good to see the continuation of the German Grand Prix.
Yeah, it also fits in, doesn't it, as well, with Liberty's. We need to stop calling them Liberty now because they now are Formula One. Yeah. Also fits in with Formula One's vision of keeping the races where the fan base is, and they obviously realised that Germany is an important market, having had so many past German world champions and German successes in Formula One. One of the biggest personalities in the sport at the moment is German, so it's important to have a race in that
One of the
country.
strange things is, though, the German Grand Prix is one of the worst attended races of the year. Has been for quite some time since Schumacher left.
Yeah, then you see that Vettel had his run of like 4 championships. Rosberg won a championship. The Germans just don't identify with him as much as they identify with Schumacher.
Well, Rosberg's only half German, isn't it? I noticed Sky called Rosberg half a Finn at the weekend.
Nice.
Sure, we were doing that 2 years ago.
We were.
Tell you what, hasn't what Sean Kelly said on the podcast turned out to be true? Remember when he
Hashtag save the crew.
Yeah, but remember when we had Sean on just after Rosberg had announced his retirement.
Well, these two won't remember because
We were ill.
Me and you,
they were both ill, and it was just us two, and we
Yeah.
got Sean in as a last minute help.
And he turned around and said that after like having interviews with him and speaking to him, he hopes that people can see the man that he knows Rosberg is. He says being quite a nice, happy guy. He seems like a really nice bloke, doesn't he? When he's on the
Yeah,
telly?
yeah.
When
You know,
he's not concentrating on racing.
yeah, and he's not seeing like childhood relationships get fucking burnt down to the ground for the sake of winning a world championship.
And now he's free to wear all the beige clothing he wants.
And properly hang off the cock of Hamilton. That man will not have a bad word said against him at the minute.
Yeah, we'll get to that in the race review. But I mean, yeah, the news is then from coming out of McLaren that Stoffel Van Dorn's out, Lando Norris is in along with Carlos Sainz. Now, the last time McLaren did a double driver change and put an established Spaniard in with a rookie Brit, it didn't really work out very
Didn't
well
go
for them.
No.
Well, they did okay in the World Championships over the next few years, didn't they?
But that particular season, it kind of worked out well for Kimmy,
Yeah.
who's
thought this was
going
gonna
to
work
be
out well.
where next season.
I was
Many question marks.
almost convinced when they announced Stoffel wasn't going to be with McLaren that Kimi was going to be announced shortly after.
For McLaren.
Yeah, because it looks like the Charles Leclerc thing is going to happen
Yeah.
now. Because apparently now, this we're just quoting.
According to our German friends,
I was going to say two German sources, Auto Motor Sport and Auto Bild.
yeah.
They are both saying that it's a done deal with Leclerc.
I did notice though that Ferrari are saying that the book stops with
Arriva Bene.
Arriva Bene.
Yes, but the complication with this is it does look like Charles Leclerc has signed a pre-contract agreement, meaning that Ferrari now have to sign Charles Leclerc, and which would leave Raikkonen without a seat.
The only thing I'd say with that is I don't think, even if you've got a contract, I don't think anyone strong arms Ferrari.
No, this is the problem.
Well,
Somebody did strong arm Ferrari, and now he's not around anymore.
No, but I don't think if Ferrari decide what's best for Ferrari is for Kimi Raikkonen to stay in Ferrari, whether he's got...
There is always a way to do a
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah. Charles Leclerc signed his pre-contract agreement under the guise, not under the guise, but under the
Auspices.
Yes, of
Good word.
yes, very much so. Very much. Vocabulary man over here. Been reading a thesaurus, have we? But the
Thesaurus, large book with words in. Why is there only one word for thesaurus?
don't know. But it was Sergio Marchionne who put that forward. Now,
The rumour being that Sergio Marchionne made a very quick deal when the allegations against Kimi came out, the ones
Yeah.
that were proved to be untrue.
and now Charles Leclerc's manager, who just happens to be Nicolas Todd.
The son of the head of the FIA and former Ferrari team principal.
Yep, has said that if this pre-contract agreement is not stuck to, then we will go crying to daddy. Basically,
Yeah, but I again, like...
This is like Stroll levels with an entire sport rather than a team.
No, but this is the sport which is worried that the fucking very foundations will crumble if Ferrari leave. I don't care if you're the FIA. I don't care whether you're fucking Jesus Christ that walks into that room. Ferrari will do what Ferrari wants, regardless of the rules.
Yeah, they'll find a way
Yeah.
to.
They've got previous.
Yeah,
yeah. It's just that the announcement was supposed to happen on Saturday.
yeah.
Post quali, after all the cool down and everything, all the media had been done. They were, according to Auto Motor and Sport, preparing a press release to state that Kimi Raikkonen would be leaving the team at the end of the season to be replaced by Charles Leclerc. It wouldn't put that in place unless that's what they wanted to do. Then Kimi Raikkonen sort of spoilt the party on Saturday a little bit by getting pole.
And the fastest F1 lap in history.
Yeah, so he's the fastest F1 driver in history. And they couldn't. That was really bad PR to then go, and you're sacked.
I thought it was really strange that, and we will talk about this in the race review, but Ferrari sort of didn't manage their tyres well, did they? On either cars this weekend.
They didn't.
Because Seb was burning through his tyres. He had to make an extra stop because they wanted to
Yeah.
run into the end.
They went too aggressive with their tyre strategies. They only
Yeah.
took 2 sets of the soft compounds, so they didn't get a chance to do a proper run to see how they would behave.
Yeah, but it seemed like regardless of just there's Ferrari mistakes coming in, and this is why I wanted to bring this up now. Is when you look at driver movements and stuff like that, maybe Charles Leclerc coming into Ferrari. Does Ferrari start to lose faith in Sebastian Vettel? Sebastian Vettel is now 30 points behind Lewis Hamilton. He's had the quicker car, I would say, over the majority of the season.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's still a race win behind.
More than now.
Yeah. Can you imagine if Hamilton and Vettel had swapped seats? Well, how many points Hamilton would be ahead now if he was driving a Ferrari, not a McLaren?
A Mercedes, yeah.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
faster.
Or
of
if he
the-
was driving a McLaren, yeah, no, maybe not, maybe no points.
maybe. Yeah, I know what you mean. Hamilton in a faster car would probably have made less errors or
Yeah.
fewer errors over the course of the season than Vettel has made. Again, we'll get to the errors that Sebastian made when we're talking about the race review, but we wanted to get the news out of the way first.
You've also got to wonder where Vettel would be if Vettel had won the championship last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If he was a bit more relaxed, would he?
The
Would
thing
he
is,
be 30 points ahead?
what I think Charles Leclerc coming into Ferrari as now seems a done deal, not confirmed, unsettles Sebastian a little bit. He likes Kimi Räikkönen. He asked for Kimi Räikkönen to stay. If Kimi Räikkönen is now not staying and is off to either to another team further down the grid or out of Formula One, he is the oldest driver. Is he on the grid at the moment at 38?
He is, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it unsettles Sebastian Vettel's Ferrari if Charles Leclerc comes in. Do you know what I mean? Because he's now not the golden boy. Fast forward to this time next year, all things being equal, Sebastian's not the golden boy of the team anymore. Do you know what I mean? He's the established driver. And Charles Leclerc is the golden talent, the young guy who everyone's sort of looking towards, to make to do something quite spectacular. And how many years has this guy got to win world championships and all those things they were saying about Sebastian Vettel when he was winning all the time. We've seen Vettel get unsettled when Ricciardo joined Red Bull. Took Vettel a long time to get used to the 2014 rules and regs. He didn't like the change. And as soon as he was unseated by Ricciardo, I think Ricciardo won his second or third race that season. Vettel went, I'm off to Ferrari. I'm leaving. So I don't know whether that was always in his plans, but I mean, the second he had a teammate he couldn't pin down.
I often wonder whether that's, well, not often, it's not like I sit there musing about it in a field, but I wonder whether...
The musings of Lee.
I wonder whether it
We've got
wasn't the
must-see
fact-
audio for that.
I wonder whether it wasn't the fact he was didn't get on with the car as much. He didn't get on with being beaten. Maybe he didn't get on with the pressure more than the car.
Kind of Schumacher syndrome when he lost 2 world championships to Alonso and retired.
Yeah.
I'm not in the best car. I'm not dominating. Sod this. I'm off.
But Schumacher never... I think as much as it's easy to say that about Schumacher, I think it was less that and maybe he was just a bit burnt out, for because he went hard for a long time, Schumacher. And he probably did retire too early.
I think he would have won that 07 championship.
Yeah,
with McLaren falling all over themselves with Alonso and Hamilton in the same car. I think Schumacher would have wrapped that championship up 3-4 races before the end of the year.
Yeah.
And probably would have done 2008 as well.
Yeah. He did that. He retired too soon. That was an issue. But like Vettel, he was never challenged by a teammate, and that wasn't always because the team favoured him so much over the other drivers.
Yeah.
Irvine, Barrichello, Massa.
Yeah.
They could all beat Schumacher on their day.
Yeah.
But they were all very much number twos when they came in. you don't get.
Barrichello was the closest, I think, to Schumacher's pace.
Yeah, you don't get the feeling, do you? When I mean, look at Barrichello's overtake on the Schumacher brothers when they were fighting over the lead. Was it in Spain?
Yeah.
In like 2000, I think it was, fighting over the lead of the race. And Barrichello, was first season of Ferrari, I think it was as well. Just was like, oh, you guys fight over the lead, and I'll take it. See you later. And he vanished. He was gone. He won that race by a good 18 seconds or so.
I wonder if Barrichello regrets not trying to leave Ferrari sooner.
Like going to someone like
McLaren when
or,
they were big,
or Williams
yeah.
when they still had a chance.
Yeah.
Maybe, but the point I was going to make then was you don't get the feeling that Charles Leclerc will be coming into the team as an Eddie Irvine,
No.
as a Felipe Massa, as a Rubens Barrichello, sort of that, or your driver A as well as our driver 1. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You get the feeling that Leclerc would be given, because he's Ferrari Young Driver Academy.
Yeah.
He's in motorsport thanks to the Bianchi family, who are still quite close to Ferrari.
Yeah.
Jules Bianchi was a very strong, close family friend of the Leclercs as well. So
Charles Leclerc's godfather.
Jules Bianchi's.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. And so you've got to look at it almost that kind of angle. People were talking like, could Jules Bianchi be in a Ferrari? And of course, that never happened. So this almost
He was on for it, wasn't he?
He was on for it eventually, I think. But this almost romanticizes the. I don't want to say romanticizes the tragedy, but do you know what I mean? It's sort of the
I know what you mean.
there's almost like a happy story coming out of something so tragic
I'm
that
almost
Charles Leclerc
convinced
is.
that Charles Leclerc still runs something on his helmet for Bianchi.
Yeah, I think he does, and he also chose number 16 to be as close to Jules as he could be for
Yeah.
number 17.
Yeah, I think he still does. Still has a JB17 graphic on his car.
Yeah.
And some drivers still do as well. I think even Jenson Button still races in Japan with Forza Jules written on his helmet.
Wow.
But the so look, you don't get the feeling that Leclerc's coming in as a number 2 driver. You always got the feeling when Vettel joined Ferrari, replacing Alonso, that Vettel would be given that number 1 status, and Raikkonen might be, even though he was a world champion, the last world champion in a Ferrari, that he would be sort of number 2'd a little bit. And that kind of
didn't race at Vettel's level for a long time.
No, but I would argue that this year Raikkonen has been better than Vettel.
I think there's
Since-
possibly 3 races he could have won this year. If
Raikkonen.
yeah,
I would say he's been better than Vettel probably since about Canada. That's just my.
I don't know if he's been better, but I think he's certainly been either closer or on par with Vettel. I think he lacks consistency, and he showed it. I remember when we were watching the race this Sunday. I said to my dad that if Vettel was out in front, I think Vettel would win the race. But I think Raikkonen's beatable. And that was we were only like 4 or 5 laps into the race then.
Yeah.
I was like, Lewis can win this race because he can beat even in a car which is inferior to the Ferrari.
He can beat Kimi
still
Raikkonen.
beat Kimi Raikkonen. I think that was right. Well, I mean, might as well talk about the race now. I suppose. Have we got any other news to talk about?
Well, there's the Danny Kvyat thing as well.
Go with
because it looks like he could be back in a Toro Rosso next season.
If he likes shooting himself in the foot, that is. I don't think he'll take it.
I think he'd go if he could be on loan. If he could be on loan for Ferrari.
The rumour has it that there is no ties between him and Ferrari next year.
Oh, right. So he hasn't got a job anyway.
He's probably going to be out of a job. He's been the simulator driver this year, and you don't see him at races because he actually works at Maranello on
and
race
you
weekends.
don't go from simulator to being a race driver. It's not a path. It's not like the reserve driver.
No. But I think if he could stay in the Ferrari family, he'd probably do that.
Like Kvyat stays at Maranello and basically runs the race strategies after free practice in the simulator and sort of say, that'll work, or no, that won't work, and we've got to be careful about this tyre strategy, etc.
Well, if you were a racing driver, which would you rather do? Not actually be in the race, but advising a team that might win, or be sat in the car driving?
I think I'd have to remember what happened to me psychologically when I was a race driver. and then I'd probably go to the nearest cash point, check my bank balance, and then look at look at the itemization of it, and look at that one that came from Ferrari on the first of the month, and I think that I'd probably make my decision.
I think for me it'd be get back in the car,
Yeah,
get out on the track.
Because let's be honest, okay, if Danny Kvyat returns to Toro Rosso and he's up against Brendan Hartley, I know who I'm putting my money on to do better out of the two of them, and it's not Brendan Hartley.
I think they'll end up driving backwards on the track to see who can lose first.
Having themselves a slow race, so you can do the slowest lap round Austin.
Pit limit is on.
Yeah, I'm still doing only 79 Ks, not 80. Yeah.
I mean, we could actually see a Toro Rosso team comprised of Danny Kvyat and Stoffel Van Dorn next year. It's not beyond the realms of possibility.
Stoffel was being spoken about, wasn't he, as maybe going to Toro Rosso?
I'd take Stoffel over Hartley.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, Toro Rosso at the moment have one definite seat free, obviously with Gasly moving to Red Bull.
Yeah.
And it can't go to one of their young drivers because Sean
No.
Gale's not going to have enough points.
No
and,
one's got points.
And
What's
Dan
the
Ticktum doesn't
point?
have the points.
What's the point in Hartley? Seriously, like apart from the fact
I didn't have anyone.
he's got really good hair, but the apart from the hair, like
And is it vast experience of endurance racing?
yeah, which means cockle. What's the point? You know he's not going to be.
Well, no, it means
a Red Bull driver.
It means he knows how to get out of a car quick when it breaks down.
Or when Stoffel Van Dorn takes the front wing off and then plows you into Marcus Ericsson at the start line.
That might be a thing as well.
Because if I was Red Bull at the minute, I'd be thinking, right, fuck it. We don't know what's going on. All indications show that the Honda engine might end up coming to some degree, but we won't know what's going on with that Honda engine until we get to Australia next year for Red Bull.
Depends if anybody gets sent to hospital during pre-season testing.
But let's just say it's shit, yeah.
Shocking behaviour.
So we don't know what Gasly's going to be like, although all the indications show he's going to be good. And I've got a fucking funny feeling he might end up shocking Verstappen a bit. Verstappen might end up starting to throw his toys out of the pram if the car's not good. So you need a Toro Rosso team with potentially a race driver in that team.
Why would you hire Van Dorn
Because
or Kvyat in a world where Esteban Ocon hasn't got a drive next year?
That's a really good point.
Yeah, I don't think Kvyat's a good choice to go back to Toro Rosso. I think it's a stupid move. I don't think it's a stupid move taking Van Dorn because although things haven't worked out from now, let's not forget this is still.
He did a reasonable job last year.
Yeah, but this is still the same lad that scored points on his debut for McLaren
Yeah.
and ripped up GP2 and won 7 races.
Yeah, he's not shown he deserves the seat this year.
No.
I mean, Van Dorn has actually scored as many points finishes this year as he did in the whole of last year. So if he gets one more points finish in the remaining 7 races of the season, he's had a better season.
Let's not think that this might have something to do with the Alonso effect as well. Because I think Alonso's
Intimidating.
and he's very good at unsettling teammates, it would appear. It seems to be that you have to be an exceptionally strong character to deal with Alonso. And if you can't do that, you need experience, like Button had experience. I think, but
Button had nothing to prove, really,
exactly.
did he?
Well, I think Button's sort of thing with that, answer back to it appeared to be to befriend Alonso, make him my friend, and then we won't fall out, sort of thing. But I don't think there's any friends in that McLaren team. I think the fact that Alonso can go away, do all these other bits of racing, probably means that Stoffel has had fucking bucket loads more work to do. Because he's been picking up the slack, like doing all the
Tyre development.
No, not just that though. Like if they need someone stood there with a watch, he's been there doing all the PR stuff.
Yeah, 'cause Nando's been off doing Kimoa.
Yeah. Or
And the
off
drivers
for
do
hours
sim
in a-
work as well, don't they?
Yeah, yeah.
I also just like to point out as well, we could have gone back 2, maybe 3 podcasts to when Lando Norris became an official Kimoa athlete. Pretty nailed on then that McLaren are going to continue with Kimoa on the car next year. Now that Lando's got the seat.
Yeah, because the McLaren entry in IndyCar that we all know is going to bloody happen is going to have Kimoa branding on it. It's going to have Alonso driving it, and it's going to be orange.
Yeah, but Lando's the official Formula One Kimoa athlete
Yeah.
for next year.
Yeah. I am surprised though that hasn't been announced.
The latest announcement is that he will be testing an IndyCar at some point of this month, which I'm guessing will be probably after the last race of the season at Sonoma, which is the same day as the Singapore Grand Prix.
Yeah,
So I'm guessing they have a post-season test
yeah.
in IndyCar. I'm certainly no IndyCar expert.
But I'm surprised McLaren haven't announced an entry if there's going to be one.
I think they wanted to get everything sorted out with what the driver lineup's going to be for next season, and then leave it a suitable amount of time, and then make the announcement that they're going in. Because at the moment, all the IndyCar headlines are about the championship because
Yeah.
it's coming down to the last race of the season. So, if McLaren say we'll be there next year, oh that's nice, but is it going to be Will Power or Scott Dixon?
Yeah.
I can't help
They
think
will get more headlines once there's an IndyCar champion.
Yeah, but they needed. I think they needed the headlines when Alonso was leaving. They needed the good because instead of a case of Alonso's leaving because he's fed up of not winning races, it could have been Alonso. Alonso's walking away from Formula One. He's staying within the McLaren family because we are going to make sure he fulfills his
IndyCar dream.
IndyCar dream.
It could just be that they haven't got everything tied up yet and they're not ready to announce.
Yeah, well, that's for me. I don't think it's a shoe-in that they're definitely coming.
Or
be there.
the team that they're going to partner with, because I don't think it'll be an all-new McLaren-only entry. They will be partnering with another team.
Yeah,
Probably Andretti Motorsport, because
there's the ties there.
Yeah.
the ties there with Andretti, and obviously last year's Indy
Well,
500,
it needs to be a team capable of winning as well. That's
which
the thing.
Andretti can do.
Yeah.
So is it a case of Andretti don't want to put the announcement out because they're too busy concentrating on the end of their own season?
Could be.
Yeah, and could, not that it would, but it could unsettle sort of what they're trying to do towards the end of the year if it takes their focus off of what they're doing.
Yeah.
Are we going to stick with a bit of news, or are we going to? Because there's still the one news item left before we can go on to a race review.
Yeah, the Toto Wolff wanting 3-car teams.
Because he doesn't see that there's anywhere to put younger drivers. Clearly, he doesn't have enough seats in Formula One for Esteban Ocon and George Russell.
Lee wants 3-car teams.
I don't think the smaller teams can afford it, can they? I mean,
Lee would rather 3-car teams and less smaller teams.
Yeah, but that would mean no teams like Force India would have gone.
I would prefer
How about
3 Red Bulls and 3 Ferraris than Force India.
Force India, who, if they hadn't have had their points wiped, would be currently sitting 4th in the championship.
Yeah, that's great. But do you know why I'd rather 3-car teams? Because we're walking into a future where teams can't compete unless they've got a technical partnership.
why don't you just allow the backmarker teams to sell one of their seats to the other teams?
I think it would be easier if you would
So
allow.
so you get 3-car teams and 1-car teams.
This is why the budget cap is
Yeah.
being looked at.
That's great. Yeah, that might work. But the problem I have with Formula One is right now, and I know this sort of thing's happened before, but I think it's for some reason it seems worse because it used to just be because of an engine, like they bought engines off them, but now it's because they're building half the car. Now it doesn't seem like you can properly compete in Formula One unless you've got a technical partnership with one of the major teams, with one of the major manufacturers, a la Haas, Sauber soon. We think Force India is going to go the same way with a Mercedes partnership. I'm sick of a Ferrari coming up to the back of 4 cars on the grid and being allowed past. And if that means that we lose some of that because the main teams have 3 cars, so you've got like 3, like at the beginning of the year, for instance, if you have three Mercedes cars on the grid, those 3 Mercedes drivers will be allowed to race until one of them can't win the championship. Then he'll be backed up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would rather that. That's racing. What happens, right? Vettel's drives through the field. Fucking great. Vettel's drives through the field. But what? 4 of those cars jump out of his way as soon as they see the car.
Yeah.
That's what I don't like.
Yeah. I can understand that.
Because we always used to say about Toro Rosso, you know, if a Red Bull was coming through, unless you're Danny Ricciardo, it would appear.
Well, there was a very, very obvious case of a Toro Rosso letting a Red Bull through.
Yeah.
Just yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And
that was before he tried to force him off the track.
he did his best to make sure he didn't get through until he was told to make sure he did get through.
Yeah.
But they're not really allowed to tell them.
Charles Leclerc was in fucking Belgium when Vettel went past him.
Back at Eau Rouge.
Of course, the most famous one being, I can't remember the year, but Murray Walker's, that's a crate of champagne on the way to Sauber then.
Yeah.
When they had the Ferrari engines and all of a sudden Schumacher's...
That's what I mean.
Look, what gap?
It's not something that's new to Formula One, but it just seems more prevalent now because every team's got a side bitch.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm not bothered as to whether or not they have 3-car teams. It's mainly Toto Wolff's put this forward because he hasn't got enough seats to put, as I said before, Esteban Ocon and George Russell. If George Russell wins F2, is he going to find a seat in Formula One? They're filling up pretty quickly. Is there going to be space for him at Force India if Mercedes do technical partnership? And if so, what are they going to do with Esteban Ocon? Are they just going to kick him out of the young driver program now that he's all of 23 years old?
Depends whether he's under contract, doesn't it? We don't know what Ocon's contract is.
No, that is true. I mean, Mercedes are actually looking at finishing the young driver program.
I can understand that.
Yeah, I can't see them actually doing it because they need the young driver program. Otherwise, Ferrari and Red Bull and Renault will have all the good young drivers.
Yeah.
But Mercedes have a small program.
Which is kind of what's happening at the moment, because if you look at GP2 or F2 and GP3, the number of big team look-alike racing suits that you see on the podium.
Increasing, isn't it?
Yeah. You know, you've got Artem Markelov, who drives for Russian time in Renault gear. Callum Isler in F3 drives an ART in his Ferrari racing suit.
Yeah.
You know, I think in the sprint GP3 sprint race on Sunday, two of the top 3 drivers were Ferrari juniors. There was only Giuliano Alesi that wasn't.
Well, how would you do it then? How could you work this? Could you have Mercedes running a single car satellite team, which is essentially a works Mercedes, and for all intents and purposes is a works Mercedes,
but a team buys it.
And it doesn't score constructors points.
The way I do it is Mercedes are allowed to buy one of Force India's 2 cars,
right,
and run it as a Mercedes, with the Mercedes team setting it up in the Mercedes garage.
Or would you still have to use Force India's car that they built, or could Mercedes plug a Mercedes in?
No, Mercedes would be running a Mercedes car
Inside Force India.
It's just they're buying one of Force India's 2 entries.
Do you not think that would become massively confusing to people that don't watch Formula One all the time as why one of the Force Indias is 10 seconds a lap quicker
Well,
than the other?
it wouldn't even be called a Force India. It would be a Mercedes.
Yeah, you'd have 3 Mercedes.
Yeah,
You'd have three Mercedes, but they've bought that 3rd entry.
So who does that person buy? Who does that person score points for then? So does that team
Either Mercedes or your top 2 drivers score, and your third
Only
one
your
doesn't.
top 2 drivers score points.
so that fucks Force India in the constructors then?
For example,
They only have 1 car to run, and it's cheaper to run 1 car than it is to run.
Yeah, but
Plus,
you're
they get a
losing
whack
out
of cash for the other
I
car.
suppose, yeah, if it works that way.
Because in other series where there's teams running 3, sometimes 4 cars, it's only the first 2 that score the constructors' points. Again, this is something I was looking into last night. In IndyCar, the Constructors' Championship is between Honda and Chevrolet. because they're the only two manufacturers that are in there. And it's only the top two with each engine that score the constructors' points. So when you get Honda taking the first 4 places in the race, Chevrolet only get the constructors' points for 5th and 6th,
Yeah.
as an example. GP3, ART have got 4 cars in there, but only the top 2 score constructor points in each race. All the
what was it?
drivers...
ART had a 1-2-3 in GP3 at Monza last year, didn't they? Russell, Aitken, and I can't remember who else was driving
I
for
think
ART last year.
it was Fukuzumi.
Was it?
Yeah.
All 3 of them scored, got on the podium for ART in GP3.
At one point on Sunday, they were running 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th behind the 2 Tridents. Then there was disqualification.
I'd be interested to see what Ferrari think about the 3-car team.
I've got the other idea would be to have Formula 2 as GP2, but
On the track with Formula 1 cars, 2-tier championship.
no, not on the track with, but have mirroring the teams for Formula 1. So there's a Mercedes Formula 2 team, there's a Ferrari Formula 2 team, there's a Racing Point Force India, whatever they call Formula 2
that
team.
doesn't help drivers get into Formula 1.
If a young driver program,
Yeah, but all that does is
because that's what the argument is here for
But
the 3 team.
Yeah, but the young drivers are already in Formula 2. The problem isn't getting drivers into Formula 2.
It's
The problem
getting
is
them
getting
out.
them into Formula 1.
Yeah,
So,
but that would be mirroring Formula 1 as like a junior series.
But,
Yeah.
but then that's to the detriment of the F2 teams who,
Yeah.
that's the peak of their motorsport, because you've got long-standing teams like Dams, Arden,
yeah,
ART.
yeah.
They've been, and they run in other series as well, and Formula 2 is their peak because they don't have the budget to run in Formula 1, but they run profitably and
Yeah.
turn over decent money and get good quality drivers.
And who knows, maybe one day
In
there will be
F2.
an ART Formula 1 team.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like the old Hesketh days where it's like you can make the jump from F3 to F1 because it costs the same as F2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and Jordan ran in Formula 3 and then Formula 3000, which is the old
Which is the
GP2.
old, what is F2 these days.
Yeah, they ran in for a good number of years before they made the jump up to Formula 1.
I think the last team to make the jump would be Manor, wouldn't it?
Manor
Yeah.
were the last team to do the...
I wonder if Carlin's got ideas of doing that because they've jumped to Formula 2 now, haven't they?
from...
Well, they've come back because
Yeah.
they had a year out, but they've also got the IndyCar operation running as well with Max Chilton,
Yeah.
and I can't remember who his teammate is. So could they actually do it? But the problem is the barrier to entry in Formula 1 is the absolutely huge deposit
Yeah.
that the teams have got to pay. And that was almost the sticking point with Force India coming back.
Yeah.
Do you remember those 3 entries, wasn't it, in 2010? HRT, Lotus, who became Caterham, and Virgin, who were Manor. But all 3 of those came in, and all 3 of them were gone.
Embarrassment for the sport.
Yeah, that was
Well,
like...
they came in on the basis that there was going to be a budget cap.
and there wasn't, yeah.
And
it
then
was,
Max Mosley effectively made them take underpowered Cosworth engines.
Yeah, it was a 3rd tier Formula 1,
Yeah.
essentially. They were the 3 fighting for the positions at the back. To the point where we saw Vitaly Petrov and Charles Pic fighting for Manor and Caterham as they were by that point. Over, I think it was a 12th or 11th place in the Brazilian Grand Prix when that was the last race of the season, because whoever got that 11th place or 12th place, they would jump the other one in the Constructors'
Yeah.
Championships, because that's not how it's supposed to be.
No, it's not.
2 teams without any points fighting over like a place outside of the points.
Yeah.
Well, everyone all the way down the field should be racing as hard as they can. They shouldn't be saying.
Yeah, but they were so slow, but they were racing each other.
I
Do
think
you know what I
it's
mean? No, they weren't
ridiculous.
racing anyone else, and they were the only.
No, I liked those battles all the way down the field.
Yeah, but not you want if Caterham could be faster than Manor for a race, you wanted them to be able to fight with Sauber or Toro Rosso for a little bit.
Yeah.
But they weren't. They were that far behind.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
But it was a 3-team and then a 2-team championship.
yeah, exactly.
Weren't they racing slower than F2 cars at one point?
Caterham were in their last season.
Yeah, there was one race, and I remember Stoffel put it on pole in GP2, as was.
It was Spain, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah, and his time was about half a tenth quicker than the last place on the F1 grid.
Crazy. I think it happened in Monaco as well, didn't it? Coming to think of it, I'm sure there was F2 cars that were quicker than Formula 1 cars around Monaco.
Possibly, but that could have been weather as well, because I do remember there was a bit of rain that year. But it shouldn't have been that case. It was, well, in that case, why not put the ART with Stoffel driving in Formula 1?
Yeah.
Because it would be as competitive as what's at the back of the field.
Yeah. So we need that sort of feed in again. Two
I
or
think
three new teams.
The problem is there's been so many young drivers, much younger than there had been in the past, coming into Formula 1.
Yeah.
So people can have a longer career,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which means there's fewer seats available.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. You need 2 or 3 new teams to come in. Maybe not next year, but sort of 2021, something like that.
2021 would be good because that would be the new engine regulations, assuming the 2021 engine regs come in 2021 and not
exactly.
2023.
Yeah. That'd be, that'll be really worrying for the sport if they do put it back for 2 years. But that would be
anything like that, you've got to be thinking about the pipeline of drivers coming in, not just.
Yeah, but that would be the perfect time to bring 2, maybe 3 new teams into Formula 1. Open up the entries and say, look, if you want to come into Formula 1, if you want to put an entry in, now's the time to do it. Might give teams like Carlin, ART, or maybe another American team. Maybe Penske might look at doing the Formula 1 and 2. Well, Haas have gone over there and done a pretty good job, and from their sort of NASCAR background. So, well, why can't we give it a go from our IndyCar background? It's completely feasible that you might get something like that in Formula 1, but you can't have that Manor, Caterham, HRT problem where they're so far back.
They've got to come in like Haas did.
Yeah, and that has to be the model that is followed now. Do you know what I mean?
That pun is allowed. We have made a collective decision that you can do the Haas joke every time. Never gets old.
No, it doesn't,
because it started old.
But that has to be the one that is followed now. That's the model that you got to look at if you want to get into Formula 1, because that team came in as 85% last year's Ferrari. The year before's Ferrari, and score points in their first 2 races.
And as everyone said at the time, that's how you bring a new team into Formula 1.
Yeah, we rubbished them at first and said there's absolutely no way they'll score any points in their first season in Formula 1.
And then we shut up very quickly.
We were shut up very quickly, but
by 50% and an 11th place.
Yeah.
But lots of.
That's brilliant, though. Do you know what I mean? It's brilliant that we were shut up so quickly.
Well, I think we were just conditioned.
Not just
we
us.
were conditioned by the new teams, weren't we? That had come in. That any new team coming into Formula 1 was going to be a pile of steaming balls.
Yeah. So
going all the way back to BAR.
Yeah. New teams coming into Formula 1 is what is needed for competitiveness, as well as allowing more space for drivers as well.
Going back over 20 years, be a Stewart and not a Lola.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, yeah.
No, they didn't do too bad in the first season.
No, they were all right, Stewart. They had a couple of race wins, didn't they, before they became Jaguar?
Yep.
And are now Red Bull.
That's
that team, isn't it? Let's be honest.
It worked for them. So what do we think then? Sort of around the table, Paul. 3-car teams, good or bad?
I think it's good. I'd rather watch a championship with like 3 Ferraris, 3 Mercedes, 3 Red Bulls, 3. Well, I imagine McLaren could put the money together to get 3 Renaults, 3 Red Bulls, 3 McLarens, 3 Renaults. I mean, you've got your grid there.
2 Turtle Doves.
But you've got your grid already.
Don't forget the maximum grid size according to the FIA regulations is 26 cars.
Yeah. No, but I mean, like you've got enough for a championship there.
Yeah.
So
but you could have 8 3-car teams.
Yeah.
I think that would make it more difficult for new teams to join Formula 1, and that's what I want to see.
Why?
Although I'm not totally down on 3-car teams.
But
at all.
why do you want to see new teams?
Because you can't just have the same 8 teams constantly throughout.
How many new
in
football
Formula
teams
1?
do you get a year in the Premiership?
There's 3.
No, but they're established teams that are moving up and down.
Yeah.
But I mean, brand new teams.
Well, 3 go up from non-league from being
but they're established football teams.
from being non-league into the league.
Two teams come up from non-league into the Football League every year.
Yeah, but are they brand new fledgling teams that have been put together that year?
Some of them are. Salford City could well be a Football League team
Right.
in the next year or two, and they've only been going 5 years.
Well, 5 years is still a long time.
No, but you've got to go up through the leagues.
They have to come up through.
But does that happen a lot?
I think there's following non-league football like I am forced to these days.
Yeah.
If you're listening, Zach, sod off. I'm supporting York City forever. Yes, you do get new teams that.
But what about? Because I don't know I don't know what the leagues are called. But I mean, like the Premiership. Let's F1 of football. Do you get teams that have just formed that you haven't heard of before coming into Formula One?
That can't happen.
That can't happen because there's a pyramid system that they have to work through.
Yeah, well, there isn't a pyramid system in Formula One. I just think it doesn't. New teams don't matter. What matters is the cars that are on the grid being competitive with each other.
I'd like personally, I'd like to see a bigger grid with competition for points.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
I would like to see teams able to move up from F2 to
Well,
F1.
I don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I've said this like for ages that if you could work a way where whichever team wins GP2 gets enough of a budget to move to Formula One, but that doesn't. It's impossible because of the infrastructure you need. It's not just
promotion and relegation into Formula One.
Yeah, but it's impossible because it's not just the. It's not just the money you need; it's the facilities and the manpower and the.
Well, if nothing else, they should be given the offer of a place. So if your
Maybe.
team wins Formula 2, you have the right to take up a place in Formula 1
I
if you
don't-
want to.
And also, if a team gets into financial trouble in those 8 3-car teams,
Yeah.
say, for example, Haas have a financial issue and they can't run at a race, all of a sudden you're left with 7 3-car teams and nobody wants to pick up the remainder of that team because, well, it's 3-car teams, it's a lot more expensive than it was to run 2-car teams.
Yeah.
And
So
then
I think
somebody
if you-
else pulls out and you're left with 6 3-car teams.
The issue with the promotion is that the F2 teams don't have the facility for actually making the car because they buy the cars in.
That's
Yeah.
what I meant.
And there isn't really outside of Lola an outside company capable of building a chassis, and they are.
Lara,
They make all the F2 cars.
they make
Haas's
they
chassis,
make
don't they?
Haas's chassis.
No, I thought it was Lola that made Hassi.
No, it's
Sorry,
Dallara.
I mean Dallara.
Yeah.
Then there isn't a company outside of that that's got the capability to make a competitive F1 chassis, and there's other companies that can make a chassis, but they're not going to make one of a quality to put it on the grid in a respectable position, regardless of what engine you built into it, because at the end of the day, if your chassis is a dog, it's going to do sod all,
Yeah.
McLaren. So you haven't got the facilities there to build a car to F1 specs, or let alone maintain a car
Yeah.
to F1 specs.
and develop that.
And
said
develop
car.
that, because all you're concerned with as an F2 team is you're buying a car, you've got a lot of spec parts that you're bolting onto that car, and you've got to customize those spec parts where you can within those rules, and it's a completely different mindset. You say you don't get new teams coming into the Premier League in football because how many do it? None. It would be like getting the rugby union champions
Yeah,
to join the Premier League, because
I don't think it should happen.
Yeah, it's a sport with a ball
Yeah.
on a pitch.
The only
And
place
you
that
s-
happens is in the US with soccer, but it's just such a
But that's
fledgling
just,
sport.
that's just because
Yeah.
you buy the franchise when the league
Yeah.
decides, okay, we've got 26 teams at the moment, we want 32 teams.
Yeah.
So 6 slots are open to offer to the highest bidder.
Yeah.
David Beckham's got a Miami one on the go at the moment.
Yeah.
Or, they're joining, is it next year or the year after they join?
Sometime in the next 2 years.
Yeah.
And
But they've got to sign players. They've got to have staff. They've already got a stadium built. But it's all stuff that's happened from scratch.
yeah, and what's going to be the new Austin team with the stadium at Circuit of the Americas that's being bankrolled by the owner of COTA. And
Which is clever because it means that more people are going to visit Circuit of the Americas and keep the circuit afloat as well
Yeah.
as the soccer team.
who I just want to say, and I've already shared this tweet with Sean Kelly, who's dealing with a lot of the
Columbus,
Austin
yeah.
thing. They are missing a trick by not calling them Austin Rovers. They're going to be Austin FC, but they've missed it.
Yeah.
I think that's about it for the news, unless something.
Three-car teams, inconclusive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you'd probably need to allow one-car teams and
Yeah.
two-car teams in
Yeah.
a world that had three-car teams.
I think so too.
Yeah, that's not a bad call.
Just like the olden days before the Concorde Agreement.
Yeah.
It's the constructors that fucks it up.
Well, Ferrari had
If there was
3
no
cars, didn't they? in
constructors
76.
championship,
McLaren
and all the
won
glory
championships
came
before.
from like the drivers. Like if you won the drivers' world championship, like de facto, because your driver was driving your car when you won it, you were the constructors championship. We wouldn't need to worry about any of this. The constructors championship holds back Formula One.
Bold statement.
And possibly making a good point.
Well, no, but see,
Well, we've made this point before.
yeah, I didn't even realize there was a manufacturers thing in MotoGP. Nobody gives a fuck about it. It's all about the riders in MotoGP.
Yeah.
And realistically, I think most of the time, like nobody, unless you're Italian, arguably, nobody sits at home wondering and hoping for a team to win the constructors' championship. And I'd say probably most Ferrari fans don't care about Ferrari winning the constructors. They just want a Ferrari as World Drivers' Championship champion, even.
Because that just shows that Ferrari have got the fastest car.
Yeah. Moving on.
Moving on, because we're all stunned into silence because
Let's rattle through an Italian race review.
Saved Formula One yet again.
I don't know how he manages this.
Italian race.
Italian Grand Prix. Better than Belgium.
Yeah.
Much better than Belgium.
Actually, by lap 15, better than Belgium.
It held the attention for most of the race, if not all of the race.
Lots of people on Twitter saying best race of the year.
Not sure about that. I mean, there was a fight out front right up until the end, which is what you want to see.
It was
Yeah.
nice seeing, because realistically, apart from there was moves going on up and down the field, but the only real race going on was for first and second.
Yeah.
But if you're going to have one race on the pitch,
Yeah,
might
that's
as
the
well
one
be
you
for
want.
first and second.
Yeah, safety car as well, early doors, thanks to the start line incident.
Well, yeah, because it was Brandon Hartley really that brought it out because he had to park.
Well, yeah, he had to park because
You have to when you've got three wheels.
Stoffel sort of...
Unless you're
whether
Marcus
you like
Ericsson,
it or
then you
not.
come back into the pits and cause an unsafe release that isn't an unsafe release.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll work from the back, and I think we actually should start with Haas.
They had the worst result.
Technically, they had the worst result: a 16th for K-Mag.
I'm
and
shocked.
A 6th over the line, but a disqualification for Grosjean. Now,
Yeah.
this is very contentious.
I'm shocked
And
that...
they are appealing it, so by the time this podcast goes out, we might be wrong.
Well, no, because this is coming out on Tuesday, and the FIA appeals process you can usually time with the Mayan long calendar.
Yeah, with a stone circle or two.
Yeah.
I really thought Haas were going to have a brilliant race right up until 10 minutes before the race start. I was saying on the live blog, watch out for Kevin Magnussen from the back, and Grosjean, if he has a clean race, can have a really good race here. They could find themselves best of the rest. They just weren't. Grosjean had a really anonymous race. He dropped back from the top 5, being the 2 Ferraris, 2 Mercedes, and the Red Bull. Very early on after the safety car, but managed to do enough to sort of just about stay ahead of the Force Indias until, of course, the end, and then disqualification, which nobody wants. Nobody wants to be disqualified from a race. It's probably the most disheartening thing ever because you've put in all the hard work. Doesn't matter where you finish. You had a hard race, and then the entire thing counts for nothing. And the other thing I'm surprised about is how it was picked up. It was picked up because Renault argued that they saw 2 sparks coming off of Grosjean's car a lot earlier on the straight than anyone else was sparking. They thought, that Haas is running too low.
Right. Well, the situation is that Haas have been running that floor since Canada. The FIA issued a technical directive on the 25th of July to Haas saying it must be changed by Imola.
Imola?
Monza. Why have I got Imola on the brain? But it must be changed by the Italian Grand Prix.
Back to 1997 and change your floor.
Haas said they weren't able to do that because of a supplier problem because of the summer break.
Yeah.
The FIA responded saying another team has been told to do it and they've changed it. Haas asked for an extension, didn't receive a reply, thought it was legal, still raced, although the FIA had told them that if they were racing with that flaw in the Italian Grand Prix, they would be open to protests from other teams about it because it was a part that was declared illegal. Renault knew about it for longer than one afternoon and put the protest in just on Grosjean's car because that finished ahead of them. Mm-hmm. Magnussen...
So was Magnussen's car, did that have the same flaw?
Magnussen's car may well have had the same flaw, but Renault didn't protest it, so the FIA didn't do anything about it.
It was also to do with the plank as well, wasn't it, underneath?
It's all to do with the fitting of the plank and a piece on the front of the T-tray that is an aerodynamic component. There is something on Autosport about it, and they've got pictures of the previous flaw that they were running pre-Canada, which was determined legal by the FIA, and with this new aero device on that changed the size and shape of the T-tray and made it illegal because of where you measure the radius of the corners of the floor from.
Right, my big question from all of this is why is something that's illegal only illegal if another team spots you doing it and not if, say, the scrutineers spot it?
Well, no, it was declared. It's the way that the FIA regulations work. It was declared illegal in July.
But they were basically told you have to change it unless no one notices.
No, they were told that they had to change it and no teams were allowed to protest about it because they had to get new parts manufactured.
Yeah.
If all the teams were made aware of this, and because they didn't change it by the deadline set out by the FIA, teams were allowed to protest it, which Renault did as soon as Haas overtook them in the Constructors' Championship, which is why Renault put the protest in.
But why isn't the illegal part that the FIA have said, get this changed by this date, why isn't it illegal after that date? Why does another team need to protest it?
Because that's the way the FIA regulations work, apparently. I don't
It's
know.
basically, if no one knows you're breaking the rules, you're not breaking the rules.
That's how Formula One works, isn't it?
Essentially, yeah. Teams have to lodge protests, don't they? And it was Renault that lodged the protest at Monza to, as you say, just to Grosjean's car, not K-Mag's. Although K-Mag was... so what was the message we had on the live blog? K-Mag's so slow, he's still in Belgium or something like that.
Something along those lines. I mean, they went for a bold strategy call on him and put him on medium tyres during the safety car, and they just didn't work.
No, medium tyres did not work. Neither did the soft tyres, arguably, for anyone. Although horrific for Grosjean to be disqualified. The appeal process will take a long time, as Paul alluded to. Magnussen had a... Excuse me.
Bless you.
Magnussen had a terrible race. And at a circuit where I really expected Haas to do very well. They didn't.
I think really that's all you can say about them. And Grosjean may get his 8th place back depending on the appeals process. But like I said, don't set your watch by it because
6th place, isn't it?
Sorry, 6th place. I'm really on form tonight. So it's the way that Chris has written DQ down. The DQ looks like an 8 on its side. So Grosjean finished infinity.
No, it's DQ.
So
yeah, he would have been best of the rest if he stuck to the rules.
But he wasn't.
But he didn't, and he wasn't.
For now, and we reserve the right to come back and re-edit this podcast and talk about what a solid 6th place that was by him just getting on with it.
McLaren's race.
Alonso retired with, I can't remember.
He cut his power unit before he entered the pit lane and coasted into the pits. So, to me, that says power unit issue. They're saving it for Singapore, where they expect to have a better race.
Because their chassis is so good. Oh, no, that was last year.
Yeah.
Van Dorn,
Okay, actually, Stoffel. Despite the fact, the bad news for him broke today, Sunday was all right for him. He was...
well, he had the...
Well, one place behind future Ferrari driver, probably Charles Leclerc.
Yeah.
I mean, Van Dorn did turn one with an extra front wing on the car. It was just Brendan Hartley stuck to the back of the car.
Well, I don't know if it was stuck to the back of the car. There was no stewards inquiry or anything into that. It just appeared to be a racing incident off the start line. Van Dorn did come right across the front of Brendan Hartley, took Hartley's front wing off. Hartley decided to take some evasive action, should we say, and Marcus Ericsson came up alongside Hartley and took his front wheel off. So, is Van Dorn responsible for the safety car that we saw? Directly responsible for the safety car.
Charlie Whiting is responsible for the safety car.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the incident that
I'd say when it's on track, Burnt Mylander was more responsible than anyone else.
But was Van Dorn responsible for the incident that brought out the safety car?
Well, if it was a racing incident, then I don't think anyone can sort of hold responsibility for it.
It was off the start line. If it had been second, third lap, then we'd all be pointing the finger at him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was off the start line. You get a little bit of argy-bargy here and there, and unfortunately...
I mean, Italy is Italy's always an elbowsy start because the straight is so wide, and then you're funneling into a very tight braking zone, and drivers are always going to try and capitalise on somebody in front of them.
Well, they're all jostling for space, aren't they? Yeah. Trying to find a good space for that braking zone, and that's exactly what happened. But Van Dorn finishing 12th was respectable, given that McLaren is terrible at straight line speed at the moment.
I mean, to be honest, it was good. It was good to see Van Dorn actually not being classified as last in a session for once.
Yeah.
And what are the odds now? He's found out that he's out of a job for next year of him picking his game up.
I mean, but let's get this straight though. He was 12th. He was still behind Williams's. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Williams is in the
had a good race.
Yeah.
But I'm just
Williams's
saying
were ahead of Sauber's.
There was shenanigans. There was drivers dropped out. I'm not hating on Stoffel, but it's just 12th doesn't necessarily show a decent finish.
I said it was respectable.
Alonso
decent.
probably would have got a point.
Probably.
But
it was...
He finished ahead of Gasly, who's been having a good season,
Yeah.
frequently in the points. He finished ahead of Hulkenberg, who, was dropped to the back of the grid, but...
Didn't make any spaces up.
Yeah.
I think the thing here to remember is that most of the cars that he finished ahead on had all been involved in various racing incidents, side-by-side stuff, and none of them had a complete flaw. And they'd all lost aero.
Yeah, because I was just going to say Gasly had issues as well, so... I don't know. I still think it's worth somebody to snapping him up, like a Haas or something like that. What we said before. I'm not hating on Stoffel, but I'm also like, it's got to be
2018 Stoffel has underwhelmed.
Yeah, massively.
Yeah. Yeah. So on to Sauber then. We've got written down next.
Yeah, Ericsson 15th. Probable future Ferrari driver Leclerc in 11th. Ericsson again, car damage.
Ericsson has had a good season. He's been doing all right. I think he deserves that seat next year.
He's doing okay. Again, a race much like Haas, I expected Sauber with their Ferrari power to just be a little bit further down the road, and they were beaten by both Williams cars, which is surprising.
Yeah. Is Ericsson doing okay, or is the Sauber just an awful lot better than last year?
Possibly
a bit of both, I think.
Possibly.
Or was the Sauber much worse than we thought last year, and was Ericsson doing an okay job in it?
Has Ericsson just not done, or is Ericsson not doing a good enough job in the Sauber this year, and he's inadvertently got Charles Leclerc a Ferrari drive? Yeah.
I'm just looking to see if there's anything from Ericsson on here. So
it was his birthday on Saturday.
Now he did lose time because of a puncture. Don't forget that because
Well, he got squished at the start, didn't he?
yeah. So he had to put it under the safety car, but he had to limp round
Yeah.
on 3 wheels, which then caused the possible unsafe release for Vettel when he came in to repair the damage that he'd taken.
There was nothing doing about that though, was there? It was looked at and nothing happened.
Yeah.
So, it was clearly extenuating circumstances. It wasn't like Sauber were trying to race Ferrari were trying to race Sauber, or vice versa. It was just the case that the both cars are coming with damage. Sauber was released slightly before the Ferrari, and
Sauber hadn't even made their pit.
was Ericsson on his way in when he had to slam his brakes?
He was on his way in
Right.
with a car that he couldn't 100% control
Ah.
because he only had 3 working wheels
Okay.
and 1 shredded tyre that he was trying not to rip apart what was left of the floor that he'd taken damage to when he hit Hartley.
Yeah.
So, we joked yesterday about, Vettel didn't get pulled for Ferrari and Vettel didn't get pulled for an unsafe release because Sauber didn't protest. But I don't think there was a great deal they could protest about because just of the circumstances.
No.
But yeah, that first lap incident, it cost Ericsson time, obviously caused damage to the car, and from then on, he just wasn't able to be there.
No. It was an okay result for Leclerc though. Could have been better for Sauber.
But it's still good to say that Sauber had the potential to do better if things had worked out differently with not running into other cars. The fact that they could have been there.
They could have been, but they had other cars ahead of them.
Yeah. Renault next. Hulk in 13th, Sainz in 8th.
Decent showing for Sainz for a change.
He's had a few nightmare weeks.
Yeah, qualified 7th, didn't he, on Saturday? So that looked like a strong qualifying session for him. And then only dropped 1 place during the race. So that's all right for Carlos Sainz. I wonder if he's performing a bit better now that he knows his future for next year is secure. He knows where he's going. He knows he's got a race seat. He knows who his teammate's going to be now. He
Probably wishes it was Stoffel.
Probably. But the surprising thing was Hülkenberg not making up an awful lot of places from the back. Again, I think he was another one to suffer on the medium tyre. I think he made a poor choice trying to use a medium tyre for a portion of the race, which just didn't work at all.
Well, it seemed to be that the Renault engine, it didn't seem to be the engine to help anyone move forwards. I think that's fair.
This new spec Renault engine doesn't appear to be what Renault hoped it would be.
Danny Rick had got ahead of the Williamses before
Yeah,
his engine
yeah.
went pop.
Well, it wasn't the
Yeah.
engine, actually. It turned out it was the clutch.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
That's
That was a lot of
interesting.
smoke came out of the clutch.
Was.
Yeah, but Renault and Christian Horner are both in agreement on this one that it was a clutch problem and not the engine.
Oh, that's good.
You could actually tell when Danny Rick retired that Horner could tell that it wasn't the engine because he was talking to Sky, as he always does, and he didn't have a pop at Cyril Abiteboul.
He said, I heard something, didn't he, Danny Rick, when he was retiring?
Yeah.
He said,
Yeah.
something's wrong, I heard something.
Yeah.
But yeah, this C-Spec Renault engine that Hulk was using, not there. Was it a bit of a sly move? Because he'd already got the 10-place grid penalty for causing the accident at Spa.
So they just decided to throw a load of engine bits
Yeah.
at him.
So let's stick another engine in. He's going to be starting at the back end, pretty much at the back anyway.
Yeah.
Should that be a loophole that gets closed?
No, because the engine penalty shouldn't be there.
Yeah, engine penalties need to not really be a
Yeah.
thing. The penalty is there in that you have to take a new engine anyway, surely.
Yeah.
And how could you close the loophole?
That's that's a.
If you-
we need to fix Formula One to
that's-
get rid of that.
That's getting back to giving the 68-place grid penalty that lasts for 4 races at a time.
It's ridiculous, though, isn't it? It's like engines cost too much money, so you can't keep putting new engines in. So if you put new engines in, we're going to stick you further down the grid, which means you score less points, which will mean you earn less money.
Yeah, which means you can't buy all the engines,
Well
which
done.
means... Yeah,
That engine is now more expensive.
yeah, exactly.
And since you're starting from the back, you have to turn the engine up.
Yeah.
Yeah, to get anywhere near the...
Which means
yeah.
the new engine that you put in that you're not allowed to use is going to fail sooner. So therefore, you're going to need another engine. So you're starting at the back, and it's a spiral.
Exactly,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous.
almost convinced that whoever put that that rule into Formula One might own a business which has got something to do with MGUHs.
Or pyramid schemes.
It's multi-level marketing.
No, it isn't.
Hang on, your name's Martin Unter Grenhard.
Toro Rosso.
Toro Rosso. Gasly, that says 14th, doesn't it?
It does say 14th.
Hartley, we kind of got a DNS there because he effectively retired before the start line.
Well, he got over the start line. He pulled over a little bit past the pit exit.
He actually moved once the lights have gone out, so technically that's not a DNS, it's a DNF.
Yeah.
Yay!
It was at Hulkenberg a couple of years ago in Singapore. Just made it over the start line as he retired.
It was the back of the car that was over the start line, but
Yeah.
he was also pointing the wrong way down the straight.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he got up to about fourth while he was going backwards with no wheels, hadn't he?
That is true.
Probably fifth.
Knowing Hulkenberg, that's very likely.
What was it? One of his wheels crossed the line before he did.
Yes.
Yeah. So, unlucky for Hartley. Again, he appears to have Webber's luck. He's not the man with the luck or the talent in that team.
But because of his
Palmer's luck.
Yeah, Palmer's luck.
But because of massive experience and endurance racing,
He knew how to park a car with no wheels.
yes, that helped him go 500 metres in this Grand Prix.
Yeah. Anyway,
So-
we've already spoken about Gasly and
Already
Hartley's
spoken about
start, so...
Already spoken about Gasly. Again, flawless, not FLAW, FLOOR.
Yeah.
He was hit by Alonso,
Okay.
damaged the floor, lost the aero. He said, and this is what Sean put on the website, that the car was sliding everywhere and just didn't have the grip. Just because of the lack of aero parts on the floor.
Surprise entry in the list of teams coming up next.
Right, prepare the nosebleed remedies because it is Williams.
With a
Double points finish.
Sergei Sorokin's first points in Formula One, so congratulations for that.
Yeah.
Lance Stroll, another good result at Monza.
Well deserved. And also, if Williams have sorted out, or at least understand, this aero stalling issue, which, we've been talking about ever since Scarbs was on the show all them months ago.
Now, just going back to aero stalling, Ericsson's crash in FP2 on Friday afternoon is the kind of thing that Williams have been trying not to have to their cars all season when they're running.
Because it was a
Because
DRS didn't close, did it?
The DRS didn't close and actually opened further
Oh, right, okay.
before it closed. So
That's why he spun round so
That's
quickly.
why he spun so quickly and ended up
Upside down.
upside down in bits. 15G impacts into the barrier and then 28G when he rolled.
He doesn't do small accidents, does he, Marcus Ericsson?
He doesn't, and Lee, you need to comment on the state of his hair when he got out of the car and took the helmet off because it was impeccable.
Well, he clearly works on it. You know.
He's a hair wax man, isn't he, Marcus
I
Ericsson?
think so. I mean, realistically, too, you've got to think that Marcus Ericsson has had a reasonable amount of practice in getting out of the car. It's halfway through a race. So I wonder whether you would at that point fit like a comb to like the chin part of your helmet. So when you
That'd be
take
pretty
it
bad
off,
for the nose, surely.
No, you keep it under there. So you could have it.
Oh, I
like,
see. So when you take it off...
Yeah. You're combing your hair as you take the helmet off.
Either that or the gel cells in the inside of the helmet for cushioning. He's replaced with wax cells.
Could be.
Conditioner
maybe
cells.
His water bottles full of Brill cream.
Maybe.
He doesn't have an airbag. He's got a product bag in his helmet.
This is a strong possibility.
First sign of impact, that brakes, sets it perfectly.
Anyway, back to Williams, because
Back
they
to
had
it.
a really strong race for the first time this season.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say this means that they've solved their aero problems because it's such a low downforce circuit.
No, but do they understand it, is what I'm saying? Do they understand it a bit more?
I think yes, they do, because when you need to have downforce there, you need a stable car to get round Curva Grande and Parabolica.
As well as the 3-4 chicanes that they've got as well. You know,
There's a
just
lot of high speed braking into the 3 chicanes as well. So if the car's more stable, I think they're in a position where they know what the car's limitations are a lot more.
They should be more competitive than they are. However, given that both drivers and both cars seem to have quite a level pegging. Sirotkin spent an awful lot of time ahead of Stroll during the race and also hassling Stroll towards the end of the race. So does that mean that Sirotkin and Stroll are fairly evenly matched now that we've seen a race?
Don't know.
Because we've always said we don't know how good Sirotkin and Stroll actually are this season because you can't tell because the Williams is just so poor. On a circuit where the Williams was all right, both drivers performed very evenly. In qualifying as well as the race.
Yeah.
Stroll was a little bit further
it's
down the road.
It's a fair point. I can't disagree with it. But we do. The thing is, though, we still don't know whether they're both crap or they're both all right.
There is a false video as well of Sergei Sirotkin being told he has his first point in Formula One. It's not Sergei Sirotkin. It's a Russian teenager in a club who's clearly on some sort of
Substance.
Go
Yes.
juice.
Sirotkin was only ahead of Stroll for 4 laps, and that was in between pit stops. But they were close all race.
They were.
Started 2 positions apart and finished line astern, albeit a lap down.
Oh yeah, they were lapped. Yeah, that's not. I'm not saying
it was-
Williams
but
are
it-
back. Like Williams are back to fight Mercedes.
But
No.
it was only a lap. It wasn't 2
Yeah.
or 3, as we have seen previously
But it was
this
a,
season.
it was a double points finish. Let's not take that away from them. You know,
Yeah.
that's-
I mean, we thought up until then, like, because that's Williams' first points of the year.
That's Sirotkin's first.
That's
First
Sirotkin's first
Sirotkin's-
point.
Stroll's
Stroll's
had a
already
point.
scored points.
Yes,
But
second
now
or
every
third.
driver has scored points this season.
Yeah, but it was looking like a double points finish for Williams was just impossible. But again, there was shenanigans. There's stuff.
Yeah, but
happened.
there's always a few cars.
Yeah, but they were there to capitalise on it when it
Yeah.
happened. So.
Absolutely. You've got to be there to capitalise.
Yeah.
And they were. McLaren, for example, were not.
No.
Just having a look, that actually puts Lance Stroll ahead of Marcus Ericsson in the Drivers' Championship.
Very good Lance Stroll.
Where are we next? Force India.
Talking of Lance Stroll.
Yes, Lance Stroll's next team, whenever the hell that may be.
Next year.
Not going to happen this season.
I don't think so. The way some of the guys that know what they're talking about have been talking about it, I hadn't thought about it as the fact that all these teams have to agree on it, and the fact that there's no. Ocon seems to be the main sticking point, doesn't he? Ocon would only move if there was somewhere for him to go, and now Lando's confirmed at McLaren. That seems like he wouldn't have anywhere to even get a chance of going somewhere. So.
Because Mercedes aren't going to put him in a Toro Rosso.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to work well for Ocon's future, because surely this means if he knows he can't go to McLaren at all, he knows there's going to be a car, at least a driver nerfed out of that team, next year for Lance Stroll, and there's maybe a George Russell or someone breathing down his neck for the other seat. He's not going to pick his results up, I wouldn't have thought, which means Perez is going to continue to school him for the rest of the year. So I think this might be Ocon's last season in Formula One.
I wouldn't say that Perez has been schooling him particularly.
No, but beating him
Ocon
consistently.
Ocon hasn't put Perez away, which is what we expected. Oh,
Oh, careful.
cat near
we
the
have
mixer.
a cat on a mixing desk. It appears to not have affected anything.
that's good.
There are only 3 points between Perez and Ocon in the Drivers' Championship, so I wouldn't actually say that was Perez schooling him.
No, but he should have. He hasn't schooled him, but he should have been blowing the doors off him. And the thing is, it's always been when there's been results to be had, it's always been Perez that's ahead of him.
Looking at this, yeah, for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, Ocon did finish ahead of Perez in Monza, but yeah, they were running pretty close as well.
Yeah.
It was the other way around in Belgium, so but as we said, early season, if Ocon wants to stay in Formula One or have a chance of a seat at a big boy team,
He had to smash him.
He had to smash Perez, and he hasn't. So
Because Perez isn't getting a big boy drive now.
Not now. I mean, there was talk going into this weekend that he was back on McLaren's radar, which would have been a massive mistake for both sides.
I wouldn't call McLaren a massive team at the minute.
no,
Financially, yes.
Yeah, financial, no, but I mean, like I'd argue that
It's a big 3, not a big 4, and they're not in it.
No, but I'd argue that even Carlos Sainz isn't driving well enough to get himself in a big team. That's why he's gone to McLaren.
Yep, I think that's fair.
You know, it's if he'd have been doing better,
Carlos Sainz was good enough. He'd stay at Renault.
yeah.
If Alonso wasn't in McLaren already, he wouldn't move to McLaren.
No.
I tell you what, I bet Carlos Sainz is fucking kicking himself for his move to Renault from Toro Rosso.
I'm not so sure. I don't think he would have wanted to team up with Max Verstappen again.
I don't know, but he'd have definitely been in the line for it.
Yeah, but it'd have definitely been number 2. And I don't think...
I don't know. I don't think you can be number 2 by Max. I think he makes too many mistakes.
But,
I
See
think
next year, won't we?
Yeah.
but Red Bull are going to stick with Max and make him de facto number 1, even if that car has
I don't
19
know.
races in the barriers.
I don't know. There'll be a point where it has to change for Max next year. Next year's a big year for Max because he's going to be the lead driver in that team, and we'll talk about Max later anyway. Won't we? We must be getting close to him.
When we got to Red Bull, now.
Yeah, right. Well, what he did in that race was fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous.
I thought Bottas had done a Rosberg at first
Yeah.
and made a mistake at that first chicane.
Yeah.
But then upon the replays and then questioning why he had a penalty and then
Right.
fighting it.
First problem here is we'd already seen what had happened to Ericsson there at those speeds.
Yeah.
To do what he did to Bottas at those speeds, that's not racing. And if there's anyone out there going, oh yeah, no, it's just hard racing, you're an idiot. Like, that's wrong what he did, and it could have been there's no reason why that car shouldn't have flipped there. If he'd, if the back wheels would have hit a bit more or something, it was fucking ridiculous. Then to complain about getting the penalty, then to turn around and say, I know I'm losing time to Vettel, but I don't care, costing yourself and the team points. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a world champion for you.
Having a potential accident with Valtteri Bottas, who you're now not racing because
Yeah.
of the 5-second penalty, regardless of what you think about it.
Yeah.
If they'd had an accident, your 5-second penalty has just become an 8-lap penalty. Now you're not finishing the race. Well done, and you've ruined a race for someone else.
Yeah.
Plus, that would have been points on his license.
Yeah.
He did get 2.
You got
For
2
that-
for that.
for that.
accident.
He got 2 for that.
It was a silly move to make.
Yeah.
Clearly wasn't looking in his mirrors in the outside. The contact was enough that he knew the contact had happened. He didn't leave Bottas enough room on the outside.
It was old Max. He was moving under braking.
Yeah.
Yeah. He didn't.
But that's his thing, and he's been told not to do it.
But there's a rule. There's actually a rule.
Because of it.
Brought in because of him,
Yeah.
and he's carried on doing it.
I stand by. I don't hate Max Verstappen because I enjoy watching him. But I think I said to somebody on Twitter yesterday,
He's not a world champion.
I don't think he'll ever be world champion because you can't be spectacular consistently. Someone's spectacular once or twice a year, but you can't do that over the course of a season. And it seems that he's only at his best when he's spectacular. I also think there's a handful of drivers out there, regardless of he's probably got better 1-lap pace than Ricardo has at the minute, depending on what because Ricardo's not too shabby at qualifying, so it depends what goes on in amongst the team as why he's getting done over in qualifying. But
lately it's because they've had to change Ricardo's engine again.
yeah.
and
Well, he's setting up for the race, isn't it? Setting up for the race instead of setting up for qualifying too, which probably doesn't help. But I just don't see it. I think there's better drivers. I think Red Bull might have put their eggs in the wrong basket.
I mean, that could have been a podium for Red Bull. If Max hadn't done that, if he defended properly and just stayed ahead of Bottas the whole time and defended much like Bottas can
But
defend.
he computer gamed. I don't think he could defend. That was the problem.
No, but if he had,
Yeah.
that would have been a 3rd place for Red Bull.
Yeah.
if he managed to hold off Bottas for as many laps as, say, Bottas held off Raikkonen, we'd all be going, great drive, Max. You know, third place where Red Bull really shouldn't have got third place. Fantastic. But he didn't. He, like you just said, he maxed it.
Yeah.
He did something really stupid, almost ruined somebody else's race, and ended
Realistically, the speed they were going, neither of them should have finished that race.
No. I mean, I think they were already under braking when they were, but yeah, it's braking from a really high speed, like
At that
220
point,
mile an
I was
hour.
just gonna say, at that point, you're still hitting 170 mile an hour.
Oh, more,
when they hit each other.
But I still do think that he's a potential world champion.
Oh, he's a potential world
I
champion,
think
but
he's-
things have to change.
But yeah, he needs to mature. He needs to calm the hell down. And I think he will.
I think he probably will, but he's not a rookie anymore.
No, but he's still a kid.
And the thing I've got with him is, I think there's. Well, looking down the list, I don't think he's quite as good. He's not as good as Lewis Hamilton. He's not as good as Sebastian Vettel. He's probably better than not Barrichello. Oh, fucking hell,
Bottas.
He's probably better than Bottas. But I think he's as good as Daniel Ricciardo.
Inconsistently, though.
Yeah, I just think there's more people that are coming through. Like given a season in Formula One, I don't think he's as good as. I don't think he will be as good as Lando is, for instance. By the time he gets his act together, I think there'll be people around him that can beat him.
But what's it going to take for him to get his act together? Because if he actually starts concentrating and doesn't do the spectacular stuff, is he going to lose out on what he would have won by being spectacular at those points of the season?
I think there's far more comparisons between him and Roman Grosjean than anyone wants to admit. If he calms himself down and all of a sudden he ends up being slow, he is Roman Grosjean.
Yeah.
Anonymous or fast and crashy.
Yeah.
And sometimes he manages to avoid the crash.
Yeah,
And sometimes dangerous.
Yeah, the difference is that he's had a better car than Grosjean. I'm sure Grosjean, when he was in the
And a scarier dad.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm sure Grosjean, if he'd have been in that Red Bull when he came in instead of the
Renault?
I was thinking Lotus because I don't count the Renault year. I think Grosjean has a race win in him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
On that day, on a day, he's got a race win in him. Pastor Maldonado had a race win in him. So I think he could have won the races like Max won if he was in a similar position and kept his head together. But it's just keeping the head together, innit? Like he couldn't have done what Hamilton did. Verstappen on Kimi Raikkonen would have crashed.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have been able to like hunt Kimi down like Hamilton did and just stay there on him until he got the opportunity to overtake him. It would have ended up in a fucking ball of flames with children crying.
But I think third season Lewis Hamilton might not have been able to do what Lewis Hamilton did.
I think you're right. Yeah, that's true. But I still think, I think third season Lewis Hamilton was better than third season.
Yeah, I would go with that.
Max Verstappen. I think first season Lewis Hamilton against Alonso is better than Verstappen's ever been.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Ricardo on the other
there's
hand.
going to be some people who don't like that.
Most of Holland.
Ricardo on the other hand, poor luck. He was carving his way through the field, wasn't he? Along with Vettel, and just sort of.
His Aussie looks caught up with him.
Yeah. Is he preparing for the Palmer seat at Renault?
The one with the flames.
Yeah.
If it can go wrong for him, it will. And does.
Yeah. I see. I think he's not going to be a world champion as well, the way things are looking.
We don't know how Renault are going to progress, but I mean,
I think they will, but not quick enough.
How much more subdued is Danny Ricciardo since he announced his move to Renault? We were mentioning this last week's podcast. Yeah,
how many times has his car let him down since he announced his move to Renault? And that's...
Every time. But even in his interviews, he's a lot more formal almost, and he's still quite cheerful, but not as cheerful as we know Danny can be, even when things go wrong for him.
I think he might be a bit upset now that because it does seem to be that he's decided to go to Renault, and all of a sudden it's become blatantly obvious that the Honda in the back of the Toro Rosso isn't too bad.
Either that, or he's decided to go to Renault, and now he's hearing things about what's happening next year in Red Bull, and he's gone, fuck!
Yeah.
I don't know, because I mean, with the amount of mechanical problems that he's been having, and the fact that he's obviously, I won't say he's less of a priority in the team.
I would.
But
Would Gasly have ever raced him?
The balance is tilted towards Max for what the team are doing. Yeah. It's going to have, because let's look after the guy that's going to be here next year rather than the guy that's checking out with the engines. And I think he's subdued because part of him is phoning the rest of this season in for Red Bull.
Possibly.
Remember how Vettel was after he said he was off to Ferrari, his last few months at Red Bull.
Is it that Red Bull make it difficult for drivers who are saying they're going to leave, do we think, or...
You're dead to us.
Maybe.
Yeah, a little bit of petulance.
That.
Well,
But he's got to be scared as well.
they've munched a few drivers, haven't they? Do you know what I mean? It's not like them being nasty to drivers is a new thing. So,
You know, it's when you hand your notice in at work and you're doing that last month or 3 months and you're not being given the stuff to do that you know you're capable of doing, and basically you just sat there to make up the numbers. You know, your head goes.
yeah.
Yeah, and you walk into work and no one says hello to you, and you sit down and just, right, okay, it's like this then, is it? Why am I bothering then?
Yeah. You decide to go for a pint after work and you find the rest of the office is already in there and they've planned a night out without you.
Yeah.
And you don't see anyone else in a pub deliberately until you're leaving, do. I want to do the last two teams together because I think it's all intertwined with Ferrari and Mercedes.
Right, so
We'll go from the beginning.
qualifying
Was
was probably one of the best qualifying sessions I think I've ever seen.
the 4 fastest laps in Formula One history were all set in Q2 and Q3.
And the final 3 fastest laps were within 6 seconds of each other. 6-7 seconds.
About that.
Yeah.
Ferrari were strong all the way up to the end of qualifying.
Yeah, but I mean, just look. I mean, shows you, doesn't it? Looking at the gap back to Bottas as well, just how strong Hamilton can be at qualifying.
Yeah.
Even with a car that's not quite up there. Mercedes were pretty sure they had good race pace, but it was actually, the qualifying pace that sort of shone through a little bit for Hamilton, and it was surprising when he went faster again in Q3. But I don't know, I had an inkling that the 2 Ferraris behind him were going to go faster, but I didn't expect it to be Raikkonen. I got to be honest, I did not expect Kimi to be the fastest Ferrari.
Neither did Seb, because he thought he'd done it. And
Well,
then,
they were celebrating on the team radio, weren't they?
Yeah.
I don't think he was the fastest Ferrari. I think that's why Ferrari were upset.
Yeah.
Because he got the toe and he was only just quicker than Vettel. They did it the wrong way around.
Which I think is what Vettel was alluding to when he said,
We'll talk.
We'll talk.
Yeah.
In a very pissed off sounding voice.
Yeah, but at the same time, Vettel got a bit of a toe off Hamilton.
Yeah, Hamilton was a bit further down the road, though.
A little.
The way it worked out was fucking perfect for Kimi.
Yeah, it was. But
Oldest pole sitter since Nigel Mansell.
Yes, I
in
saw that.
94.
94.
Yeah.
But then you've got the start of the race, and that looked pretty orchestrated to me by Ferrari. That Seb will come alongside, and it's between the two of you who gets into first corner first. Just don't touch each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Kimi had it covered into
Yeah.
turn 1. But then you saw Hamilton's exit
Also
from
did a
turn.
great job of covering off Hamilton at the start with the way that he
Yeah.
pulled out and got back in and still managed to get the jump on Vettel into turn 1.
Yeah. Well, he had Vettel already, didn't he, starting from pole? But for Hamilton's exit from turn 2 was key because Hamilton took a wider line through turn 2, which gave him more speed going through Curva Grande, turn 3, and then was able to put him up alongside Vettel going into the chicane. I, in the blog room, said that as soon as it happened, I was like, that's Vettel's fault. Hamilton left him enough room. It was weird that it was Vettel that spun round, though, and not Hamilton.
Well, the thing was, and you only saw this on the super slow-mo replays, was Vettel understeered massively going into the chicane. And the car was practically rotating because it kind of lost the back end more than the front. So it was sort of understeer and oversteer at the same time. And that's why he got the spin, because the centre of gravity in the car wasn't where he was expecting it to be, just because of the slide.
He lost the back end.
Yeah. And that, whilst he lost the back end more than he lost the front end.
But the thing
The
was,
whole car was sliding.
But the problem, he didn't lose the place because he was sliding. He was sliding because he'd been beaten and he didn't concede the place. He shouldn't have fought that because Hamilton had him. There was nothing Vettel could do about that. And I was a bit pissed off of Vettel for saying, "Oh, he didn't leave me enough space," because he had like
more than enough room.
a car and a half's
Yeah.
width on the other side of him. If he'd have just gone wide, because Hamilton had him, like he'd done that, there was no way he could have got back from where he was because he was being pushed out wide. So he was taking a wider line around the corner. So that was Hamilton's corner from that point.
I just want to say, though, it was fantastic piece of late braking by Hamilton to carry that speed that he did.
I think that was one of the best overtaking moves of the season, just because of the balls it took to do it, what was at stake, and the fact that if he didn't get it right, they were both out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's why Vettel stayed on it. I think he was surprised. And he tried to do something impossible to stay ahead of him, but it was impossible.
Yeah, but to say he didn't leave me enough room is
It was ridiculous.
I don't think that was Hamilton's fault at all.
No.
no.
I think you can call it a racing incident and be fair, and I think maybe you can call it Vettel's fault and still be fair. And I would go
I
with
wouldn't say he did it deliberately.
definitely not. No,
Hamilton had nothing to do with Vettel losing the car and spinning out. But I do think that was... I text our friend Andy Klukas but just before the race and said, Hamilton, it would be better for Lewis and Vettel to end up in a pile of bits than it would be for Lewis to let Vettel get past him if he has the opportunity to overtake him.
Yeah.
And I do think that was a full-on do-or-die move. You know, if he didn't make that move, they were having an accident. But he did make the move. They didn't have an accident. Vettel had an accident on his own, which was unrelated to it. But he definitely went in for that, thinking, if we crash here, it's up to you. He gave Vettel the choice of having an accident with him or not. I think that's quite a good move. Me.
It's the kind of thing that Senna used to do to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was a risky move, but I think he was completely entitled to go for it.
Yeah.
And I think he just surprised Seb. I think Seb thought that his fight after turn 2 was going to be with Kimi ahead of him.
Yeah.
And I'll get the radio call in a minute to get Kim. I'll say I'm faster if this was all probably going through Seb's head. And then all of a sudden, there's a silver Mercedes alongside, in front. Oh shit! I'm panicking a little bit. He lost control a little bit. He didn't deliberately drive into Hamilton or anything, but it was the whole sort of coming on the radio saying, "Oh, Lewis didn't leave me enough room." It doesn't matter what angle you watch that from. Lewis left him more than enough room.
Lewis could not have left him more room.
No, and there is this thing, isn't there, with Sebastian Vettel? There's errors that he's made earlier on in the season, and they're just starting to
Going to Singapore as well. When you look at Singapore last year, this is the last place he needs to be going with pressure on him.
They're just starting to hold him back a bit. I mean, Hamilton's now 30. It doesn't matter what happens in Singapore. Hamilton leads Singapore and the lead of the championship.
Yeah.
It could be by 5 points. It could be by 60 points almost, 55 points. You
Yeah.
know, that's the swing that could happen at Singapore swing. But the yeah,
Is that where you use whiskey instead of gin?
possibly.
I'll go for one of them.
That's a disaster for Sebastian Vettel, given that he's got the faster car, and as you were saying before, Hamilton has made fewer errors across the course of the season so far, and it's held him in good stead. Sebastian, where else has he made errors? He made an error in France.
Hamilton's made less mistakes since Australia last year.
Mm.
This isn't a new thing now.
But France, Vettel went into Bottas, didn't he? And they both spun around a little bit at the beginning of the race. Where else did Vettel's made a couple of other mistakes this season as well, hasn't he? Baku, he outbraked himself in Baku
Yeah.
Yeah.
when he should have won that race.
Big one in Germany in the wet where he ended
Germany
up
in the
barriers.
wet, yeah. So, all these little mistakes, races he should have won. Let's be honest. He should have won Germany. He should have won in Baku, and he didn't. He didn't win either of those races. And now the points total tells the difference between a Hamilton in a slight. I'm not going to say it's an inferior car, but maybe slightly inferior in straight line speed to the Ferrari.
Hamilton.
I think Ferrari have the better car now.
In
I
terms of pure pace,
for the first time in the turbo era, the Mercedes isn't the dominant car.
Yeah.
it's not dominant. It's still got its strengths.
It's a very, very good car. I think the Ferrari's better. I think Mercedes raced better this weekend.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So then, Bottas. I've heard this described as the best wingman performance ever, and he should be renamed Goose.
It's good, like.
I tell you what, like when it comes to defensive driving, I don't know that anyone else out there at the moment does it as good as Bottas.
As soon as Raikkonen came out the pit, you said there is no way that Bottas is going to be able to back him up into Lewis.
For 5 seconds, and he did.
He did it.
Yeah. Well, I think he made 2 seconds up, didn't he? The gap, because
5. It was 5
wasn't
seconds.
Wasn't it 2 when he went into the pits? It was still 2 between Raikkonen and Hamilton.
5 seconds when Hamilton came out of the pits. It was 5 seconds from Raikkonen to Hamilton.
Yeah, but when Bottas went in, I think it was 2. I think.
Oh yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah,
It was even less. I think it was about 1.3, 1.4.
Yeah.
So he still took 3.5.
Oh, it was great. It was great. Yeah.
You know,
Like,
it still backed him up 3.5 seconds.
While still gaining on Verstappen in front of them.
But you know what?
Yeah.
This is where Kimi lost the race, I think, because he panicked.
He
Being backed up.
burned his tyres out.
Yeah. So realistically, he should have thought, right, I've got the quicker car. Regardless of what happens here, if he does back me into Lewis, I'm just going to have to sit here. I might even get overtaken by Lewis. But
save the tyres.
But as soon as Bottas has gone in the pits, I'm going to use my car and I'm going to get back in front of Hamilton again.
It did not work. And the Kimi's tyres at the end of the race.
Yeah, there's canvas showing almost.
Yeah.
Well, Ferrari got Ferrari'd in Monza.
They did.
You know, when you think of all the team orders and stuff like that. But what a track not to bring team orders in for Ferrari. The only way I can think it is that Kimi knows, because they said, didn't they, early on Sunday morning, that both cars were allowed to race.
Yeah.
They said that. So the only thing I can think is the fact that Kimi knows he's not in the Ferrari next year, so he's like, I'm going to try and win this race.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that makes me wonder whether Kimi from this moment on for the rest of the season
Is doing a Felipe Massa.
Is
I
good.
don't race for Ferrari. I race for myself.
I want to win a race before I go.
Yeah.
And I do think he deserves a race win this year.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think both him and Bottas deserve a race win, to be honest with you. Bottas was driving really, really well
Baku
early.
should have won, shouldn't
Yeah,
he?
yeah. Was driving really, really well early season, and just his luck wasn't with him in places like Baku, for example, and Bahrain. He should have put.
Ironically, it was the Red Bull crash that lost Bottas the race in Baku because it was some of their debris that he ran over.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, you got to feel for both the Finnish drivers, although they both did get on the podium in Monza. Raikkonen will really have wanted to have won that race, but as soon as Lewis passed him, he gave up. We didn't see any of the sort of. I don't know if he could fight given the tyres.
I don't think he could fight with the tyres because they were on the way out, and
He was told on the last lap that they were critical.
yeah,
Yeah, he was probably just making sure the car actually finished.
nurse the car home. You're clear of third place. You're not going to get overtaken if you drive safely enough that the tyres don't go on you.
Whereas if you try to race Lewis and get the place back, you're probably not finishing the race.
Yeah.
So, do we think that was one of Lewis Hamilton's better drives in the last few years?
I think so. I think he shouldn't have won that race. And any time somebody wins a race, it's when they haven't got a car for it. It's good. It's good.
Yeah. No, I think the Mercedes car shouldn't have won the race. Lewis Hamilton.
That's what I think. I think Lewis won the race.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Lewis beat Kimi Räikkönen and Ferrari.
I said
No,
before.
Mercedes won it.
Yeah, Sam with
There was a team
fine bit of
effort there.
teamwork. Yeah.
Yeah, I said before the race that on the live blog that Mercedes were going to have to pull all the rabbits out of their special edition caps to win this one, and they did.
There was a lot of rabbits kicking about.
Oh yeah, the strategy for both teams, strategy for both Mercedes drivers. It was almost like they predicted that Kimi was going to be the first one to come in and stop for tyres, and they just played it beautifully.
Yeah.
You might argue, well, backing one car into another isn't really racing. No, but it's a tactic that's been used in Formula One for many
For
years.
decades.
It's not. Yeah, it's
I
not.
Don't, I don't think it was actually deliberately backing up. I think Bottas was racing at the best pace that he could because the gap.
He was.
The gap to Max's Red Bull was still increasing.
Yeah.
So he was driving not 100% at his limits, but he was still driving at a fairly decent pace. And he was putting Kimi in a position where he couldn't pass him.
Yeah.
He was making defensive moves in all the right places, but not losing too much speed.
Yeah.
It was. This is why I'm saying it was a great wingman drive.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah.
I'm glad he got his podium as well. He deserved to be on the podium.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have to go too far for villain of the race.
No.
Max Verstappen.
Yeah. Hero.
Lance Stroll.
I find that hard to argue with.
He had a good drive. It was good to see Williams up there, even before the Haas was stuck out.
Valtteri Bottas.
I mean, realistically,
I think there's a whole load of potential heroes.
hang on a second. Can we just speak for 1 second about how the fuck Kimi Räikkönen got driver of the race? Kimi Räikkönen lost the race from pole position, and he was named driver of the day.
In Monza, is anyone other than a Ferrari driver going to be named driver of the day?
Because internet votes didn't count. It was just at the circuit.
Maybe.
Predictions.
I don't
Right.
think this went well. I think you went well, did you?
Oh
no, you picked Kimi, didn't you?
I went for a Ferrari win.
We'll do this in alphabetical order. Chris, you said Vettel, Hamilton, and Raikkonen. 2 points. Dan, Vettel, Raikkonen, Hamilton. 4 points. Lee, Vettel, Raikkonen, Hamilton. 4 points.
Ooh, okay, I'll live with that.
Me, Vettel, Hamilton, Raikkonen. 2 points. This week's winner, Sean, Vettel, Raikkonen, Bottas. 6 points. So the league table, Dan, we're tied at the top. We're both on 42. Lee, you're getting ever closer because you were in danger of getting relegated to
I know.
Doing your own F2 prediction league next season. You're in third on 40. Sean's on 39.
So just quickly, what are you on again?
42.
Oh,
Chris.
I'm adrift.
You're at the moment outside the 107%. You are on 33 points.
Do we vote to let whether he can join in the next race?
I think we give him a one-off opportunity in Singapore and then we take it on a race-by-race basis after that if it
Well,
goes badly.
if either of you score no points and then I get a 9-pointer, I'm joint lead. So
yeah. You're all right, Seb.
And if me aunt had bollocks, should have been me uncle.
exactly.
Right, as the hour here is getting later, we're going to skip Total Shunt tonight because it's 11:15.
Sleepy
Okay.
Bobo times.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I vote we do
Double shunt next week.
If we get time, we'll do a double shunt next
Yeah,
week.
deep shunt, some deep shunt action.
Yeah. So shall we move on to Formula Lee?
Yes.
This was the last race that we're doing on F1 2017. Can I hear some cheering around the table?
Dan just did a
Little bit.
silent hooray. Yeah, I deleted 2017 very quickly.
31 people haven't. Or 31 people hadn't up
Had
correct
not.
at time of going to press. It was a repeat of last year's Monza race.
Was it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in the dry. I thought we'd done it in the wet, but as it turned out not. Which was very confusing when it came to recording the PlayStation times, because I'm seeing the same dates just 1 year earlier.
Yes, it.
However, 31 people sent times in, and to get into the points, you needed a 122.963. So, Dan, your time of 123.131 got you 21st. And my 124.267 also took part. Sorry, it was 30 entrants and I came 29th. I only beat Jeff Leopold, who is always round about 10% off the pace because he's got a crap graphics card.
Turn the resolution down, mate. It's the
He has. He's
the
got
frame rate you need.
He says he's got it on minimum resolution. He still can't manage more than about 15 frames a second.
Piss it.
Start a
What
crap.
type of graphics cards you got in it? A fucking box of chips?
I think he's using onboard graphics in a laptop.
Oh.
Yeah.
Go get yourself a console, mate.
Yeah,
That's expensive.
He gets to see a series of still shots. However, the top 20, all with better times.
I feel like we should do a Kickstarter for him to get an Xbox.
What we got? 20th place was Chris Charles, 19th Wayne Hines, 18th Matthew Day, 17th Nicholas Carline, 16th Patrick Daly, 15th Adam Smith, 14th Nick Patakis, 13th Dominic Arietta, 12th Alberto Roldan, 11th Ken Lauderbach. Top 10, 10th Nick Richardson, 9th was Pete Bull, 8th Brandon Wheeler, 7th was Timmy Bristow, 6th Travis Parker, 5th Vitcher Camping, 4th place and getting these time in just on the deadline at 7 o'clock tonight, Alessandro Popolani.
With the great ice cream recommendations.
Top 3, Max Williams, 121.129.
Another good result for a Williams.
Second place with a time of 121.047 and celebrating his birthday on the 6th, Bradley Chambers.
Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday,
Brad.
Happy
Bradley.
birthday, Bradley. I've got a story to tell about him.
Uh-oh.
He sent us a tweet in this afternoon. Where am I in Formula Lee at the moment? It's the last day of the challenge. To which my reply was, equal last, you didn't send a photo with your time.
Dum dum dum.
He did in the end. Winning this one and taking the bragging rights for winning the last race on F1 2017 with a time of 120.595, Chris Olby.
Well done, Chris.
Well done,
Yeah,
Chris.
Good
well done,
effort.
mate.
So we move on to F1 2018, a much better game.
So far, anyway.
I think it's better. I like it.
Dan, that means we've got more competition in the room for from this race onwards.
Yep.
It's not going to be good, is it?
Nope.
It'll take me a few races to get back up to speed, I think, after not really bothering with 2017.
Good. I might even start using my wheel for this one. I'm sure I said that this time.
So we're on
last year.
Singapore as the first race.
We are.
So it'd be unfair, not because we'll do a deal here, yeah. Because it's kind of breaking a rule, yeah. But you have to agree to the second part of it, and then it's a dry race.
What's the second part of the
I'll
rule?
tell you in a minute.
So you have to agree to the second part without knowing what it is.
You have to agree to the first part without knowing what the second part is.
So the first part is it's a dry race.
Yes, so you can have a dry race.
I think we can agree with that.
Yeah. So then we break the car rule for the winter series because I want a fucking brawn.
You've been waiting for this moment, haven't you? You've been waiting for this since F1 2017 was announced that the classic cars were coming back, hoping that the Brawn was included.
No, I've been waiting for this since the 2010 first Codemasters game because when they
Because
released,
they didn't do the brawn.
yeah, because when they released the like
PSP version had a brawn on it.
the PSP did have a brawn on it, but the target renders for 2010 were using 2009 cars, so there were target renders of a brawn. So that's probably what they've used but they've probably used that car model which they've had for ages and actually put it into a game.
Now they've finally got the rights to it.
Yeah.
So it's a Brawn in the dry in Singapore.
Yeah.
2-week challenge. Cut-off is 7 o'clock UK time, 2 o'clock Eastern on the 17th of September.
Challenge for all our Formula League drivers as well and competitors. Seeing as they're, it's a fairly new game still, I want to see how close we can get Formula League competitors up
the
those
top of the
world
chart.
leaderboards. Yeah, because that's going to be a bit of an effort.
Bearing in mind that sometimes we don't make it into the top 30,000.
That is true.
Yeah, but that was for a game that was already nearly a year old.
That is also true.
Yeah, this is still a fairly new game, so I want to see how far we can push these brawns.
How we
up
can
there.
do it.
And remember,
Yes.
if you do it on Xbox, to add me, Leader 100 on Xbox.
And if you're on PlayStation, add me, Pabstar. If you don't want to add us, or you're on PC, then, or you're not online with anything, then you can send your times in by a direct message on Twitter to at 3 Legs 4 Wheels, or you can go to Facebook, facebook.com/3legs4wheels, send a message on there, or you can email 3legs4wheels at gmail.com with your time. Also, if you want to get in touch with us via Twitter, use the at 3 Legs 4 Wheels, or
At Dan Dankleton.
At a total shunt.
At Flood21.
and at Pablo100. Use the email address as well if you don't do social media, or you want to leave longer messages than you can on Twitter.
Can we have a PO box?
No, because
They cost money.
They cost money.
Okay. What about a letter?
Well, we could have a PO box if we had more Patreons, couldn't we?
Now that's the thing.
Is this a stretch goal?
We do an extra show every week on Patreon with other rewards that we're still working on. I've got a plan for those, which we're going to discuss in our next business meeting, which we will get round to at some point. It basically, you donate via Patreon, patreon.com/3legs4wheels, and all the money that gets donated goes straight back into the show. It pays for our hosting, which we'd like to thank Cloud Above for,
Yeah, thanks. Absolute legends, guys at Cloud Above.
because they do an incredible job actually keeping us alive.
Yeah.
Making sure that this show goes into your ears.
Definitely. Pays for things like software, microphones, cables, all the spares. Because this takes more than you'd think sometimes.
It might need to do as a new table one day because we do have gaffer tape on a leg.
This is true.
Yes, I am seeing it. And it's not gaffer tape that's holding cables down. This is actually structural gaffer tape.
Yep.
It's not load bearing just yet, though.
Give it half an hour. So yeah, all the money goes straight back into the show, and it just basically says that we could not do it without our listeners and especially our patrons, and we can't thank everybody enough.
Yeah.
That's donated. So if you want to help us out, go to patreon.com/3legs4wheels, pledge away.
I hate them less.
That's one way of describing it. We love them more, you hate them less. I think that basically says our worldviews in general, doesn't it?
I think that'll be us for this week, then, will it?
I would say, I guess we're about done, which is good because it's almost something to midnight.
Yes.
Join us next week for a Singapore preview.
And something else.
Yes.
And 2 total shunts.
Bye-bye.
See you
And
next
possibly
week.
news about Ferrari seats.
Bye.
That might actually happen tomorrow morning, and I might have to record a jump.
This
I've
feels
already
like,
said bye.
Yeah,
this
Chris has
fe-
said that.
This
Shall
feels
we go-
like you hang up. No, you hang up.
No, these are the DVD extras.
Paul,
We'll see you
please
next
hang
week.
up.
Bye-bye.
Bye.